What's up guys, Josh Fossgreen here, and today we're going to learn how to do a cool right hand technique called thumb and fingers plucking, which is very indicative of what it is, because I didn't think of a cool name for it. On guitar, if you're not playing with a pick, you just do finger style, which is plucking with your thumb and fingers. But on bass, when we say finger style, we mean plucking with these two fellas. So this is sort of a guitar-ish technique, and it often is called palm muting because when you're using your thumb and fingers, you can mute the strings with your palm and get a muted sound. But you don't have to do that to do thumb and fingers plucking. So that's why it's called that, and that's enough preliminaries. So this is a really cool technique that I use a lot, like so much. I probably can't even keep track of how often I use this because there's so many different things you can do just with this idea of incorporating your thumb and your other fingers into your plucking patterns. Even if you're just playing totally normal bass, you can incorporate this at different times, even if you just need to play some kind of octave pattern or something. It's really good to start integrating your thumb into your right hand repertoire, assuming that you're already comfortable with the basic two-hand plucking finger style, which I've covered in the past. And this is a way to sort of start becoming more versatile and fluid with your right hand technique. Because for me, there's a few techniques that are pretty much the way they are. Like I almost always slap sort of the same way, and I usually pluck the same way if I'm doing that. But there's this whole range of stuff that I do to get different sounds out of my bass with my right hand. So this is one of those things. And I've written 3 musical examples for us to look at today, and we're just going to kind of have to go through them, otherwise I'm going to be talking for a very long time. But for starters, we're just going to start with some basic chords, and this is one of the great things you can do with this technique is to pluck chords more efficiently than if you were just doing 2-finger plucking. So we're going to look at some 3-note chords on the A, D, and G strings, and we're going to do some thumb, index, middle plucking, and we're just going to do a thumb, index, middle, index pattern, which is written as T-I-M-I in the free PDF, which you should download. Ta-da! So that you can follow along. So T-I-M-I is the terminology that's written there for the fingering. So we're just starting with an E power chord with an octave on it. So we've got E, B, E, and we're just going thumb, index, middle, index, and each finger gets its own string. So you don't actually have to do any string crossing with the right hand. You're just plucking what are called free strokes, which means your fingers kind of have this upward momentum, which you'll see once we start the exercise. There will be a right hand close-up so you can see what I'm doing. We're just going to switch back and forth from an E power chord, sort of an implied E minor, going to G major triad. If these chord voicings are too hard for you, because they are a little challenging if you're not used to playing 3-note chords with your left hand, they're a lot harder than the open string chords that we learned last week, which were super easy. These chords are too hard. You can just do open strings as an exercise. Obviously it doesn't sound as good, but there you go. So let's just go ahead with exercise 1 here, and we'll just get used to this a little bit. 2, 3, 4. Nice. So if you haven't done this before, just doing a simple pattern like that, thumb, index, middle, index, might be challenging, but you just put some time into it and you get comfortable with different plucking patterns. And a quick note on the fingering for that, if you are playing those chords that I've written, the E to the G, a little fingering trick you can use is to keep your 3rd finger on the B, on the D string, because that's the common tone between those 2 chords. So then you can go index finger, ring finger, pinky, or 1, 3, 4 on the E chord, and then keep your 1st finger barred to the D on the top of the G chord, move your pinky over to the G for the G chord. So you only actually have to move 1 finger between those chords, using that bar with the index for the E and the D. Groovy, right? Okay, so that's an example of using thumb and fingers technique for playing chords. However, there are many more kinds of things you can do with it, which I'm going to try to start to talk about in this video. It's I could talk for a long time about this. But the next thing we're going to look at is a little country music kind of thing, which is something, again, it's sort of guitar terminology called alternating bass, where you take a chord voicing and on the bottom of the chord voicing you go root, fifth, root, fifth, root, fifth, and that kind of thing to give some momentum to it, even though you're not actually changing chords. So this is just a super cheesy kind of country style riff, complete with cheesy walk-up. This is great music to play on stage if you're like waiting for your diva singer to like drink some water, or like your guitar player's fiddling with his cables and everybody in the audience is super bored. Then you can whip out, make funny faces, you know, in lieu of learning the Jeopardy thing, which I actually have talked about in previous videos. Let's just play with this. So the thumb is moving between the root and the fifth of the C7 chord, and the index and middle finger are plucking the third and the seventh of the chord up on the D and G strings, which are staying in the same place. So fingering wise, you can use your second finger and fourth finger on the D and G strings respectively, and then have your third finger do the alternating bass. And then it's all thumb in the right hand with the little walk up at the end. Alright, here we go. Yeehaw! I want, two, three, four. So that's fun, right? A little country two-beat doodly doodly doodly. Obviously you can move it around to different chords and do funny little things with it, but that's sort of a basic pattern you can use, and a little variation on using this thumb and fingers technique for chord playing. Now in example 3, I want to get away from chords and talk about something that you might have noticed as we were just playing exercise 2. The first 2 repetitions I played it like that, and the second 2 I played. What I'm doing there, and again I'll show you a close-up of this when we play the exercise, but I'm actually just leaving my palm on the strings very close to the bridge. If you're too far from the bridge, you're going to totally lose the note. But if you're close to the bridge, then you get a nice muted sound instead of a totally open sound. So that's another thing you can play with this thumb and fingers technique, and you could have done that with exercise 1 too. Rather than hovering over like this where the notes are ringing completely, just stick that palm down there and it gives you more of a sideways angle on the strings, but it's still basically the same technique. And you get this cool muted sound, which I think is just awesome on bass. I love that sound, and I use it a lot on this bass, on my Peavey Cirrus, because it's a very active sounding bass, and if I'm trying to get a more vintage tone out of it, I will very often use palm muting to get a more dead thumpy sound like you might expect out of a P bass with 50-year-old flat wound strings on it. But I just really like to use this bass, so this is a technique I use a lot. So exercise 3 is a cool 16th note funk line that I've written for you, where we're going to keep our palm muting happening. And this has some 16th note syncopations and whatnot in it, so it might be a little challenging, but you know, if the rhythms are too hard, just play with this idea and come up with your own little funk line. So here we are with exercise 3 in F sharp minor. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just for reference, here's what that would sound like without palm muting. And there's with palm muting. I just think it's so cool. It just adds so much dimension to a bass line when it's appropriate. So that's our 3 exercises for the day. One last thing I'll leave you with the last example is that if you look at what your right hand's doing, using your thumb and index finger, it's very similar to slap technique. If you're playing a slap tune with a band and you need to bring the dynamics down for whatever reason, the breakdown or just for the verse or something, but you want to keep the character of the line, you know, say that's the chorus line and it's really popping out, and then you want to come down for the verse. You know, it's a very similar technique to slapping. Besides that, you're using your thumb muscle to pluck rather than using the rotation of your forearm, as I've talked about in the past. But it keeps that kind of feel with the right hand, but you can actually modulate your dynamics, because a lot of people, when they're slapping, it's just, this is their dynamic range, is just loud and nothing anywhere else. So using the thumb and fingers plucking, you can actually get a dynamic range of the slapping, you know, where you bring it below the loud percussive level and get the same line coming out, but at a lower dynamic. So that's really cool. So those are a few musical examples of using this thumb and fingers plucking technique, but as I try to mention in all my videos, you really got to explore this on your own if you want to see all the things you can do with it. You know, these videos would be 10 hours long if I tried to cover everything you can do with the technique. But you know, you can play chords with it, you can do single line stuff, you know, it can even help you just playing just a simple octavey bass line or something if you don't want to jump around. You know, throwing the thumb in there just like that can be really helpful, even if you're not doing full on, you know, thumb and fingers plucking pattern. Just throwing a thumb in there occasionally can be really helpful. So just play with that, play with how it can add dynamics to your slap playing and add more versatility and help with string crossing for your more fingerstyle playing. And have fun with it. I love playing with this. You know, the more performance videos I put up on this channel, the more you'll see how often I use this technique and this sort of range of like fluid right hand techniques to get the sounds I want from moment to moment. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really am enjoying making these bass lessons for you. I've been getting a lot of really great gratitude and questions and comments in the comment section below. So I love all that. I appreciate your subscribing and clicking like, and please share these videos with your friends because it's a way that you can help my channel grow and reach more people at no cost to you. If you would like to support me at a cost to you, you can check out my Patreon page or make a donation through my website or buy a copy of my book Beastly Scales and Arpeggios, which is only $5. You know, anything that you can do to help me keep building this channel, putting out more free bass lessons for everyone to enjoy of all ages and backgrounds, as long as they have computer technology. I really appreciate all your support. So thank you guys. Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes.